I'm on my way to Gramercy in Manhattan to go meet with Jon Stein, CEO and founder of Betterment. We're going to take a look at his offices and head over to Bose and have a conversation about being in TechCrunch Disrupt and also the milestones of running Betterment. How's it going?
Nice to see you.
Show me around a little bit?
Yeah, sure. Let's take a tour.
Thanks for sharing your time with us today.
Great to be here.
I'd like to start with kind of going way back. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Dallas, Texas. I grew up there all 18 years. My parents were both city planners there in Dallas, and I think I inherited from them many good things, including a love of maps.
Okay.
Because they always had like a great, cool map spread out on the coffee table or something.
So you're there for 18 years, so pretty much your whole kind of
My
upbringing.
whole childhood, I was there. Yeah.
Were you involved in technology early on?
Not at all. You know, I don't think I even knew what technology was, and it was all going on, right? But it wasn't like a big deal in my life. When I graduated from college in 2001, I had some friends who'd been in the tech sector, but they were all losing their jobs, right? Like, so it didn't even occur to me that I might want to someday start a tech company.
What was your first computer?
We had some kind of like PC compatible that I remember well. I also remember getting like an Apple, like 40 megs of RAM. I don't remember the model number or whatever, but I had one of the old PCs I used to play games on. Some of like the question response games or like depth charges or stuff like this. Like
within that time, like growing up, what was your early conception of like money and money management?
You know, growing up, I had an interest in stocks. I think in part because every year around Christmas, my grandparents would say, "Oh, we should get John some Disney stock or something like that."
Okay.
And I would say, well, "What about that?" Like, and I would never get it, right? I was like, that would be like a nice thing to get. And I actually remember looking at like the papers and like tracking the value of stocks, and I thought, my goodness, this is a complex thing. Like, who actually reads all of this?
Yeah.
Like, who looks at all of this?
And you
stuff?
understood the fact that it was like stocks were being traded and that they're companies and there's something
some
about
level,
that that was interesting to you?
Yeah, but it wasn't really until I got to college and I took economics that I got a real sort of framework for understanding how markets work and how economies work and the macro level of finance came from.
Where did you go to school?
So I went to Harvard for undergrad.
Okay.
And in my freshman year there, I took two classes that really shaped my worldview. One was Intro to Economics with Marty Feldstein, who was he was one of Reagan's economic advisors. Very efficient, markets-driven, and believed in rational decisions. And if we would all just make better decisions, the world would be a better place. And then I took human behavioral biology from Irv DeVore, who was this like liberal from southern Louisiana who grew up drinking Pearl beer and got struck by lightning in Africa and just like traveled the world doing interesting stuff and talked about how despite our best intentions and what we would see as like the right decision, we often trip ourselves up and get in our own way, and so making good decisions is hard. And so I always thought that those two worldviews were really interesting, and they hit me at a formative time. And I think I've spent a lot of my life and career trying to reconcile those two things. Right? On the one hand, we should just make better decisions, and we'll be better off if we do. And on the other hand, that's really hard to do.
If you look back at college for you, what was the most impactful thing that you learned that helped Betterment today?
I think what I learned most in college was the value of good decisions versus the difficulty of making them. I went deep on that and have a good understanding of financial theory. When I got out of college, I don't know that it helped me all that much because I started investing, my graduation money myself. And I made some of the same mistakes that I'd read about, in the economics classes, right? Like I bought Enron on the way down, which was like kind of a classically bad decision. I made some good investments too, and I netted out, kind of neutral. But I realized I was spending a lot of time on it, and there were probably more productive things that I could be doing with that time. If I were furthering my own career, for instance, or just even spending that time with friends, it would be better than than spending all that time kind of fruitlessly.
It takes a lot of time.
It takes a lot of time.
Where did the concept of Betterment come about?
So it grew in part from that experience, right? From my own investing experience, and having opened, multiple different brokerage accounts, and finding that none of them really steered me toward the right answer. They all steered me toward the right answer for them.
Yep.
It wasn't the right answer for me.
Yep.
And at the same time, I was working for banks and as a consultant. My first significant job out of school. And I was learning all kinds of stuff. I was having a great time. I was living in New York and traveling around and working on product development and risk management, investment portfolio policy. I earned my CFA, so I was learning all this great stuff.
Financial innovation.
Financial stuff, right? Yeah. But I found that most of our products that we were developing didn't really take into account what the customers wanted, right? We would go on a 6-month product development cycle and never talk to the customers. And now that seems crazy to me. We would never do that.
Never.
And I realized there's got to be a way to build products that put customers first, that align with their customers' interests. You can still make money, but you've got to think about what the customer wants from this thing. And I don't feel like that's the place that most financial services are these days, right? So we're trying to build a financial service that you can love, one that makes you happy, one that is really aligned with you.
Understand the why of the people, right? Or understand what they want and why they want it.
Exactly.
How old was Betterment before you did TechCrunch Disrupt?
When we launched at TechCrunch Disrupt in May of 2010, we'd already been working on the service for 2.5 years before that.
Okay.
2.5 years of regulatory approvals, 2.5 years of tech build. There was a significant investment. We were bootstrapping that whole time. We were really just on fumes. And it was a great way to launch. We'd seen other companies like Mint.com launch it at TechCrunch, and we thought, well, if this worked for them, this is a good forum for us. And it was a great way to get out in front of a lot of people.
Yep. And what was the application process? What did you have to go through to even get to the stage?
I remember it being a lot of high hurdles, and so by the time we had to build it, we had to do our own video. So we hired somebody to come in and film a video. We went down to the financial center. I was up in front of the stock exchange. I remember talking about the financial system. It's very funny stuff to go back and watch now. But after all of it, we were so relieved to get in. It was like that feeling of I don't know, like when you get into college, or so it's like one of those days that you're just like, this is a big day. This is things are going to change from this point on.
You guys did pretty well within that, right? What did you do right, and then what did you think you could have done better?
I think in the process, what we did well was we had a compelling product, right? We'd invested a lot of time in this thing. It was a real product. It was a differentiated product. It was a novel idea, and we got a lot of props for that. Where we were criticized was people said, "Oh, this is almost too simple. This is it's too easy." And Michael Arrington, who is the owner of TechCrunch, came out and said, "Well, what are you saying?" Because the judges were telling us, "What are you saying? You're saying if they made the product crappier, if they just if they made it harder to use, you would like the service more." And the judges were like, "Yeah, that's what we're saying." It was a funny reaction. I'm glad that he sort of highlighted that point.
Yep.
I wouldn't do much very differently. I think some of the competition there had $7 million of funding, which at the time seemed hundreds. Certainly, it was hundreds of times what we had ever seen, and seemed like enough money to build a lot more. I think, given that we had zero resources, it was amazing that we were selected best startup in New York, and we sort of we took it from there.
Why New York? You're from Texas, so why in Manhattan?
Well, I moved to New York after college because I had so many friends coming here. This was like the place to be on the East Coast, I guess. Remember at that time there wasn't a lot happening in tech in 2001. It just wasn't really like a thing to I don't know, go join a tech company. And I probably wasn't super thoughtful about it, but the thing to do at the time was to go somewhere into financial services. And I never really wanted to, help banks make more money. That was sort of my job as a consultant. And it wasn't like a fulfilling purpose, but I do feel like it was a really good exposure for me, right? It was like an industry that needed some outside perspective. It needed some change. And I felt I felt lucky to be in the position that I was learning all this about it and knowing that someday I could come back and start a company and change it.
Okay. What about New York do you like as far as the tech scene and technology here versus maybe doing it somewhere
New York's
else?
an amazing place to live. I mean, I'm biased because I've lived here for 13 years now.
Yeah.
And
but you're not from here, so.
Yeah, right. But it's a place where young people want to come from all over the country. So we have, our team is people from the West Coast, it's people from the Midwest, it's people from the South. It's maybe only 10% of the team is native New Yorkers. People come from all over to come to New York. And it's because it's one of the greatest places to live in the world. It's like such an exciting city. There's so many different people and industries and events and interesting places to live and go out and go to parks. It's just like I'm so excited. I have a daughter now. I'm so excited that she gets to grow up here because there's no place in the world where there's more going on.
Yeah. What was one of the largest challenges you guys have encountered, like post TechCrunch disrupts?
Wow, the challenges are different every year and every day.
Yeah.
And I think what is most interesting to me is how my role has evolved. I mean, when I started, I was really a product manager, right? That was kind of like my chief job. And I was doing some engineering work. I mean, I was doing customer service. I guess there wasn't a job I didn't have to do, really, in the early days.
Yeah.
But
you do it until you can find someone that can do it better for you.
And then you hire people, and you've got to let go of one thing and let go of another, and you're always just letting go of stuff. And after a while, it's not just letting go; it's like forcefully pushing off. You have to be very intentional about how you're getting rid of these things and planning. And I say, my job now is to try to get myself to a position where I have nothing to do. And my challenges are very different from what they used to be. So the challenges today are thinking about how do I build the right team? Who do I need to bring in to do all the many jobs that there are to do? How do I align that team? Right. So is the vision clear? Are the company values clear? Is what we all have to do to get there clear? And then providing the right resources and environment for everybody to execute and do the best work of their lives. Those are the challenges. If we do those things well, we're gonna do great stuff.
Those aren't easy things to do. Right. And so, was there something that got stuck along the way and you had a big aha, that you learned in the process?
We've had many dark days, right? Where either we lost a significant hire, or we made a bad hire and we had to change course. Those are really hard things to do. I think about the early days. It took us a year to get to $10 million under management, which, in retrospect, it's a really long time. At the time, it seemed like great. Here we are. Somehow people gave us $10 million. Now we bring that in an average day, right? So the scale of things has changed a lot, and the challenges have changed as a result. But what was hard early on was just how are you going to get from 10 million to 20 million? And today, that's we'll wait a day.
Yeah. But was that your first major milestone? Was that 10 million?
That was a big. I mean, I remember it. I remember it well. I remember celebrating it. That was, it felt like we made it.
Yeah. Looking at milestones and kind of looking into the future, what kind of milestones do you have for yourself now, and where do you see the organization going?
Ultimately, we want to make tens of millions of Americans happier, right? Like we want to build technology that makes them happy, and we're doing that through the lens of financial services and efficiency and how we can get them to better outcomes.
Yep.
So I think the major milestone for us is when do we have 10 million customers on the platform? That's going to be a big day.
Yep.
That's still probably a few years out. We're over 100,000 customers now,
Okay.
and we're growing very quickly, but we'll get there.
So as you scale and the company moves forward, what challenges do you see kind of on the horizon?
I think the toughest challenges for us are execution. Right? If we have a market-leading position, we have a great team, we have the best technology, we have like real differentiation between us and everybody else in the robo-advisor space, right? Like we're head and shoulders above. If we execute well, we're going to do amazing things, right? Like we're going to naturally come to occupy a large share of the market. We're going to help millions of people. If we get distracted and we start to try to do too many different things, we'll stumble. And I think that's the thing that scares me the most.
Focusing on the right things.
Focusing on the right things.
Yeah, it's hard to know sometimes what are the right things.
Sometimes you don't know until you've done them.
Yes. So I'd like to know, straight from you, like, why should people invest this way versus the old traditional ways of investing?
I mean, like, it's kind of a no-brainer, right? Like, it's just obviously better than anything else you could do with your money. So the way that we used to invest makes no sense. Like, the idea that you should go and pick stocks or funds and then tax manage them and rebalance them. Like, why would you do that? It's like yes, those are the right things to do, but to do those things yourself is like, it's like maintaining your own car. Maybe it's a fun hobby. Maybe it's something you want to do on the weekends. Yeah. But it should not be something that most of us have to do. Yeah. And we're moving very quickly towards a world where people don't have to do that anymore. It's like if you could perform surgery on yourself, would you want to do that? Maybe. Like you could
probably
do
not.
that, but you probably shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah.
And that's what we're doing with our old-fashioned investing system.
Yeah.
Like this idea of self-directed investing, it was kind of forced on people over the last 40 years, and it's just not the right thing. Like we're in the early days of thinking about how do we plan for long-term retirement, and how do we plan for when we are only working for a portion of our lives, right? We need to set up a system to take care of people for the remainder of their lives that they're not working. Yep. We're still just figuring that out because this is only a situation that's existed for a few decades, right? And it's a brand new thing to us as a species. It's not something that we've adapted to, and we're building the way that should happen over the next 100 years.
So changing gears a little bit on life, what do you do outside of work? Like, and specifically, what do you do that you can't think about work? Like, is there an activity that because I know that there's activities I do where I go do those activities to think about work. Right. Like I go on vacation to think about the vision, which I probably should not, but and then there's activities that I do where I can't do anything but that activity because I can't think about work or anything else. It really pulls me away. So what is that activity that you do that
I know exactly what you mean. And I also think about work on vacation. I work all the time, right? Yeah. To me, a vacation is a time to think about work, right?
Absolutely, right?
It's a time when I'm not working so that I get to think about work.
Exactly.
So I can relate to that. Yeah, I think it's good to have those forcing mechanisms. I bike to work, certainly in the summer. In the winter, I chicken out a little bit. But and I love that time because it sort of clears my head. That's a great thing. I love biking. I enjoy running. You actually don't think that much when you're running. I don't know. Some people say they do. I don't. I'm just
think about breathing.
Yeah, I think about getting there. And I really love hanging out with my daughter. I mean, she's so fun. And, whenever I do have free time, that's what I want to be doing now.
Yep.
And I find that she's a good distraction from work.
Absolutely. Ongoing education. I found my education was great, but then it's over. and you have to kind of figure out how to teach yourself or ongoing teach yourself. And I'm a learner.
Oh,
I
yeah.
love learning.
Yeah.
What do you do to continue to learn what you need to learn, because you're always doing new things, right? As a CEO or founder and entrepreneur,
100%.
you're always doing new things.
So there's a lot that I do or that we do as a company to try to bring in new ideas. I mean, I think this is a really important thing. You've got to keep in touch, right? Like, you've always got to be talking to your customers. You've got to be talking to people in other industries, because that's where good ideas come from. Ideas don't come from like looking at the same data all the time.
Yeah.
You need some new insight so you can put things together. We do book club at Betterment. So every month we're reading a different book. We just read *Sapiens*, which I would recommend to anyone.
What is it?
It's a great book. It's the history of intelligence. It's like why Homo sapiens are intelligent and organized in the way that
*Sapiens*.
We are. Yeah, great book.
What is one of the books that you've given away most to people?
That we've given away?
That you personally have given to people or suggested reading?
Oh, that's one. I think Dan Kahneman's *Thinking Fast and Slow* is another recommendation that I often make, because it has to do with behavioral economics and some of the principles that we use at Betterment to help people make better decisions. So that's another favorite. Right now I'm reading great history of the modern financial services system called *A Piece of the Action*. That's a fun one.
Okay. Besides books, do you listen to podcasts?
I definitely listen to podcasts. I listen to Reply All. I listen to startup podcasts. You know, kind of the classic things. This American Life and so on. I find time to watch movies and TV and stuff too. Like I try to keep in touch in many ways.
Okay. Looking back at your 25-year-old self, knowing where you're at today, and knowing that the work that you've done in between, what advice would you give your 25-year-old self?
It's hard for me to go back and want to be revisionist, because I'm pretty happy with the way that things turned out. I mean, I feel like I have the best job in the world, you know? Like I feel very lucky. I've got a good team. I love my family. Like I'm happy. If I could go back, I mean, somebody said to me early on, you know, like maybe you should have done this sooner, right? Like pull the ripcord, do it.
Yeah.
I could see that. I could see like having started sooner, and maybe I wish I had, knowing how things have gone now. But it's really hard to be revisionist like that.
Yeah. What was some of the best advice that you received that's really helped you and helped Betterment?
When I think about like advice, and when I think about things that are often in my mind, I often think of something that my grandfather and then my mother have said to me again and again, which is like, to those who much is given, much is expected, right? And I feel like when you're in a good spot, like you've got to do really good things and sort of like pay that forward.
Yeah.
And I feel like I think about that a lot. I think that has something to do with like how I think about happiness.
Yep.
That, you know, as long as you're pursuing something that you feel is good and valuable to the world, you're not pursuing your own happiness, but you sort of tend to find it along the way. And that's you know, it's worked for me so far. So
that's great. Well, thanks for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me.
Hey, this is Jeff Martin again. If you go to leadbychange.com, you can see this show and other shows. If you subscribe, you can get early access to new shows and also exclusive content. Thanks for watching.